Entrepreneur. Entrepreneur. Siri, spell entrepreneur. Starting a business sounds exciting, right? But what if the business you first start isn't what you end up with? Would it be worth it? I'm honestly never imagined I would be here. I would be here training clients in a studio in my home. Nor did I think I'd be here, helping trainers take the leap from a gym employee to an independent business owner. I've had quite the career journey since graduating nursing school. I've had jobs in 10 different areas, and before the solo trainer, I've had 3 different businesses, so this is making my 4th business venture. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you the 5 lessons I've learned in my entrepreneur journey. Because if your journey doesn't look like textbooks, that probably means you're doing it right. As I've just mentioned, I now have had 4 different business ventures. And even with all these jobs as for self-employment, I never really considered myself an entrepreneur. In fact, I even struggle with how to spell entrepreneur. But thank goodness for autocorrect and voice texting and Grammarly. But when I think of an entrepreneur, I think of someone who's maybe in a suit and gone to business school, or either they have a brick and mortar and lots of employees and they're a known entity. So when I was working as a nurse, I felt the nudge to really want to do something that was on the wellness and preventative side. I wanted to help people stay out of the hospital, but I wasn't sure what that was going to be. So I took the less obvious route and decided to become a legal nurse consultant. And if you're not familiar with what a legal nurse consultant is, it is a nurse who works with attorneys on medical cases. So this was my first entrepreneur gig. I spent a lot of money, like thousands of dollars, going to Atlanta to do a certification course that was by one of the first entities creating this type of program. This was way back before there were online courses at all. Then I spent even more money, even thousands more, to do their mentorship program. Then I was off to make this a legit business. I came up with the name Professional Legal Nurse Consulting, LLC. I got myself a suit, I got headshots, I even got beautiful letterhead and business cards and brochures and folders with my logo on them to hand out to attorneys. So this is before having your own website was even a thing. And I'll get into later on why my legal nurse consulting gig was not successful, but I honestly can't even really tell you why I got into legal nurse consulting to begin with. What made me choose to try to start doing my own thing? Maybe it was because the idea of being my own boss sounded pretty good. And honestly, why I started that venture doesn't matter because it got me where I am today. And that leads me to the first lesson I want to share with you that I've learned from my entrepreneur journey, and that is what you start with isn't what you end with. And that journey continued. After having my daughter in 2008, I started the business of selling products that I created, craft products. I'm a pretty crafty person, something I just enjoy doing, and I started creating tutus and flower hair clips for little girls. I was selling them in a local store where I could rent out a little space to sell my products. Now, I wish I had more photos to share with you, but my daughter was about 2 years old. Unfortunately, she knocked over our external hard drive and it broke, and we were unable to recover any of our photos from our digital camera. So this was back when I think the iPhone was just coming out, so I still had a traditional flip phone, and there was no iCloud out there. So then after a while, I started making headbands that don't slip off while you're working out. Now, I'm not the original idea of this. I had seen one in a store and I thought, I can recreate this and it'd be a lot less expensive. And so I started crafting these headbands and selling them to my gym buddies around the time I started teaching group exercise classes. So I would have a stash of them in a bag that I would kind of secretly show people at the gym so they could buy them from me. I've even created some for a fundraising event one time. And I came up with a pretty clever name, at least what I thought, calling them the Gingy Bands, and had a logo made. Had a shirt, wish I could even still show you that. My Facebook page, I deleted that at some point ago. This is before websites were still a thing, and you could sell products off of Etsy, but it's just not something I wanted to get into. And this wasn't the end of my crafting business. At one point I got a silhouette machine, which is like a Cricut machine for those who might be more familiar with that, but this is a machine that you can create a design in a software program and the machine will cut it out in paper or in vinyl. So I was taking and personalizing lots of products using vinyl. And again, I started to sell these in a local store, renting like a shelf with my personalized products on there, and also going to craft shows and taking custom orders. None of these ventures, from Legal Nurse Consulting and my craft products, were very successful. But these unsuccessful businesses were getting closer to what was going to fulfill my passion. And so this is the second lesson I want to share with you in my entrepreneur journey. It is every failure gets you closer. So every business failure is getting me closer to what I ultimately need to do to fulfill the passion that I have. So for that, I'm very grateful for the business failures. And I understand why each one of them failed, not just because of the reason I just described, but more of a tangible reason. And for my Legal Nurse Consulting, the reason that wasn't successful was because I really didn't know how to show the attorneys and talk to them about the value that I can provide them, why they needed me to assist them in their medical cases. I lacked that confidence because I didn't know how to show the value that I could provide for them. And then when it came to my crafting business, the reason that that wasn't successful is because the fact that I wasn't pricing my items, these things that I took a lot of time to create, even though it was like fun, but at the same time you want to be compensated for all the time and work and effort you put into something. And I didn't want to charge very much because I wanted, with the idea that people would buy more. But then you start to realize, is my time really worth what I'm making? Have I priced these items really to not just think a little bit above what they actually cost, but the time I was investing in them and the value that I was providing them? So these two reasons for my businesses, my Legal Nurse Consulting and crafting business, for not being successful, is leading me to the third lesson that I've learned in my entrepreneur journey and want to share with you, and that is, don't undervalue what you offer. So for whatever reason, we tend to struggle with highlighting the good things that we do or what we can do for other people. And we tend to end up pricing ourselves maybe just on the time and not think about the value that we're giving that person who is purchasing our service or our product. Now that's a subject matter for another video, so I'm not going to dive into that right now. So moving on to as my journey continued, I got certified as a personal trainer. It just seemed the next step to take after teaching group exercise classes, and we moved up here to the DC area into Northern Virginia. So now I was starting to move closer to fulfilling my passion of helping people stay out of the hospital. So like most trainers, I started working at a gym, a huge chain, national chain. Maybe they even have them globally, I don't know. But it wasn't the best fit for me. And so I ended up moving to another gym that put a lot of education behind their trainers, and I loved it. I even managed there. And one of my favorite parts of working with trainers as a manager was to help them grow and build their business. But unfortunately, the job of the manager, as well as still being a trainer, was way too time consuming. And it was no longer a great fit for my family. I was getting completely burned out. So with encouragement from an amazing client and dear friend and mentor to me, suggested that what if I went on my own and worked for myself, traveling to clients. After a little bit of thought about it, it seemed like that seemed the right thing. And taking all this knowledge I had about starting a business in the past as well as some other advice that was given to me by some other clients, I was off on starting a 7-Core. So I'm going to quickly try to explain everything that's happened in the last 8 years or so. And so when I started out, my business entity name was 7-Core Fitness, and I was just mainly traveling around to train clients. As I started to grow in my nutrition and health coaching, getting certifications in that, I decided I think I want to shift my focus a little bit more on this wellness health coaching. So I chose to change my business entity name to 7-Core Wellness LLC. And so just to give you a heads up, if you ever decide to do something like that, it's like changing your legal last name. There's a lot that's involved with it. I even created a book about helping people create and establish sustainable, healthy habits called The Warrior Approach. And then I also end up having a couple of colleagues of health and wellness coaches join me. And this was at the start of the pandemic, and so we were working together to grow 7-Core Wellness. And each one of us had our areas that we wanted to focus on. I wanted to focus with executives, another wanted to focus on military, and the other wanted to focus on working with families. And so for a year or so, we worked together trying to build the brand, trying to bring in clients, and it just wasn't very successful. And one of the coaches had an opportunity to go work with her group that she wanted to, and so therefore wouldn't have as much time to work with 7-Core Wellness. And actually at the time I was sort of just feeling that this wasn't setting right as far as ultimately what I wanted my business to be. And so I just decided I'd go back to working for myself. And I would also share with you, during the time I've also have hired I don't know how many assistants to work with, to do the back end stuff, to create social media, all of that, because you just cannot do it all yourself. I went through several, and that was mainly because they would end up quitting because the assistant company they were working for wasn't paying them enough, or some of them weren't a good fit. Eventually it's using freelancers, and you're paying $35 to $40 an hour for someone to work with you. Well, that can really add up if you don't feel like you've got the income stream coming in to help support that. So ultimately, again, still things weren't feeling like the right way I wanted my business to be. So I ultimately decided that I just wanted to stick with personal training, mainly that. It's challenging, it's very challenging to be a health and wellness coach and helping people change habits, and I just found more joy and passion in working with clients one-on-one. So this leads me to the fourth lesson that I've learned in my entrepreneur journey that I want to share with you, and that is follow what feels right. Your gut plays a huge role in your success in doing what you love. And it was in December of 2022 when a great idea came to me working out, which great ideas usually come working out and in a shower. And I started to think about over the years of all the colleagues that had asked me what they needed to do to go independent. And I was thinking, there's not a resource out there at all that helps someone start a business and understand what it means to be a business owner. There are plenty of resources out there for trainers and how to grow and build your business and make all this money off of it, but nothing that literally would show you the steps of how to start your own business. So it came to me as I was working out, the solo trainer, that I really wanted to help trainers make the leap, take that leap from being a gym employee into being an individual business owner, so they could have the schedule they wanted, make the money they deserve, and have something that was theirs. Just as working as a trainer has fulfilled my passion of helping people stay out of the hospital, the solo trainer was now helping to fulfill that passion that I had of getting to work with and collaborate with colleagues that I had missed so much. And I was seeing how my entrepreneur journey was leading me on this next adventure. And because of everything that I had learned in the past, I knew exactly what I was needing to do in order to make this successful, which now leads me to my fifth and final lesson I want to share with you. And that is that you can't do it alone. I couldn't do this by myself. I knew in order to make this as big as I want to, where I'm reaching people across the country, I was going to need some help. I know what I'm really good at and what I enjoy, but I also know what I'm not good at and what I don't enjoy. And I was gonna need some help in those areas as well as some other expert advice. So at the start of 2023, I made the leap on working on the Solo Trainer. I bought the domain, I created a logo, ended up hiring a business coach that's helping me with staying focused and organized and has connections. I've been working with an attorney to understand more of the legal matters and for her to create legal templates for purchase. I've gotten with my accountant to better understand business finances. Plus, there's so many behind the scene things that have to get done and things that are very time consuming that I'm not very good at nor really enjoy doing. And I was really going to need some help with that. And that's where my husband comes into play. He has taken on the role, co-founder, and he's better than 1,000 assistants that I could have. And so we are now working together on this venture, and many times our meetings also involve our dog Jack because he decides that it's a good time to get his squeaky toy and that it's playtime. But so at any rate, we've been working hard on crafting the Solo Trainer. At the time of this recording, it's been about 2.5 years since the idea of the Solo Trainer came to me working out. And it's been a slow build. And it's been a slow build not because of the fact that there's a lack of motivation or passion or any of that. It's because I am crafting this on my own timeline. I have a full book of load of clients. I have a daughter that's in high school. And, family time is very important to me. So was not going to let the Solo Trainer consume all my extra time, but instead it's just going to have to build it with what time I have. And so we launched the website in summer of 2024. We have some products out there now. We're continuing to build content. And we are looking at ways and trying to get the word out about how to help these trainers who want to leave the gym and they want to go out on their own, what exactly they need to do to get started so they can be very confident in not only just starting, but growing and managing their business. I'm excited for all the trainers that this is going to help. And I'm taking all of these lessons that I've learned in my entrepreneur journey into creating and building this business, which were 1, what you start with isn't what you end with. 2, every failure gets you closer. 3, don't undervalue what you offer. 4, follow what feels right. And 5, you can't do this alone. And one last thing I want to share with you that's really great about being an entrepreneur is that you get to determine what that looks like. You get to define what it means to be an entrepreneur, and thankfully you don't have to know how to spell it either. So if you are an entrepreneur, I'd love to hear the lessons you have learned in your journey. Please share them in the comments below. And if you are an entrepreneur and you're curious to learn more about what it's like to be a business owner, I suggest you check out this video that I've done on the 3 truths that people rarely talk about being a business owner that are so necessary for you to know.